Welcome to the solemn Yu-Gi-Oh channel where we discuss everything collecting and investing in Yu-Gi-Oh! Today we are doing the 6K Q&A. Wow, that is a rhyme. I'm a rap god. And I may have to split this into multiple videos because I got a lot of questions. So question 1. Knowing what you do now, if you could go back in time to when you were younger, I'm still young. Which packs or cards would you have invested in or owned by this point in 2021? So I think everyone has like this weird dream where, wow, imagine if I knew, I would have bought everything. And while that's true, you know, that's not the most realistic mindset because you could do the same with the lottery. You know, from a monetary perspective, definitely like LOB, but I don't know. Maybe more like Toon cards in PSA 10, Cyber cards in PSA 10, some Blue Eyes in PSA 10. Just cards that I currently don't own in PSA 10, but in lower grades because I felt like the 10s were very expensive. But then again, you're like, well, maybe they won't be expensive compared to a few years from now. So it's a bit of an odd one, but definitely Toons, Cybers, and Blue Eyes. Do you play GOAT format? If so, let's see some deck lists. I do play GOAT format very casually. I don't have multiple decks. I more so have one deck with like all the staples and then a binder with all of the staples to swap that deck into other decks. So I have GOAT Control, Chaos, and Zombies. Hypothetically speaking, if someone had the means and money to do so, couldn't they buy up all the SDK/LOB Blue Eyes for well above current estimates and in doing so dramatically inflate the price? First of all, not really, because how often are these cards actually for sale? You know, it's very easy to think, well, if I had 20 million, I could own the entire market. But you gotta consider, a lot of the pop is in the hands of people who just will not sell. Like my SDK Blue Eyes, unless Jeff Bezos stops in front of my house with his limo and tells me, you know what, your Blue Eyes for my Amazon, I'll go like, okay, guess I'm forced. But in general, the SDK isn't leaving my hands, and there's many collectors like that who just say, fuck your money, I'm not selling, I'm not leaving. And so it's not really realistic, because you know, we've seen all this price doubling and so forth, and even then, we've only seen 2 SDKs for sale in the span of 5 months, you know, in PSA 10 at least. LOB, public for sale 2 in that same time span. So despite the all-time high prices, only 2 out of the pop of what, 80, like 76 and 86 or something, have actually shown up. So clearly there's a lot of collectors who just are not selling. So even if you had the money, where would you go? Again, in these 5 or 6 months, you were able to get 2 out of the 76 SDKs. You were able to get 2 LOBs out of the 87 or something. I don't know, that's around where the pop should be. So it's not that simple as just I have this bag of money and I'm gonna buy out the entire collector's market. 1. How did you start investing in Yu-Gi-Oh cards? My first collector's purchase, I want to say, is Starter Deck Kaiba, and that was a few years ago. It was $100 or something. But I've told this story before. A lot of the big purchases I made were actually starting very early in 2020 because that's when I got a huge tax bill and I knew that was coming, so I was saving up, waiting for that. Then I paid that huge tax bill and then I started splurging, knowing that I could without, you know, potentially getting ruined. 2. Why do I understand investing like something that needs a lot of money? Can I also invest in a framework that doesn't need much money? So this is a bit of an odd one because cardboard is very volatile. If you are forced into a budget, I think it's very dangerous to do it in a very speculative market like this one. I would more so be looking at, you know, your Roth IRA or your 401k, your S&P 500 or something like that, like established market. But then of course, if you just want to collect, buy whatever you want. If you really want an SDK Blue Eyes, buy a PSA 6 Unlim SDK Blue Eyes, something like that. That should still be in budget. You can still enjoy the card. It'll still be cool in a slab. You'll enjoy it. May it go down? Yeah. May it go up? Yeah. But then you can still collect it and enjoy it. But, you know, from an investor standpoint, I never like to push the very lower end items because they're not rare. And while in a hot market, they may be going up, 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 up. In a colder market, they may go down, 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 as we have seen on many Pokemon cards in that lower end after October. If there is a slight bend to an entire card, can it still get a PSA 9? No. Is there any way to fix the bend? Usually not. Like if it's just, you know, curling, the very gradual because of the cold or the heat, slight curving, yeah, you can put it on under a book or something like that. You can kind of flatten it out, but if it's an actual like crease or a bend, no, you can't get that out. What was your first graded card you owned? Man, I forgot. I know the first thing I bought as far as collecting goes was the Starter Deck Kaiba. Of course, beyond what I bought like 18 years ago or something, but actual, I don't know. I don't know, I should look that up. Does anyone have a hypothesis or theory of how much a Ghost from the Past, Dark Magician, or Dark Magician Girl PSA 10 would go for? We don't know because we don't know how many you will be pulling. Is it one per case? Probably gonna be a lot. Is it one per box? Probably not gonna be a lot. So depending on those pull rates, the price can be completely different and you may have to add or subtract a 0 from that entire number. How important / what should the premium be, if any, on knowing the history of sealed product to confirm its authenticity? I think the market will gradually start deciding that. With all of the fakes and reseals and all of that crap, I think there's definitely an extra bonus you could ask if you are a trusted person who can prove where you got your box from, but I don't know. That's a weird one. I'm not so sure. Until resealing and faking becomes even more prevalent, maybe not that much of a premium, but if it becomes a bigger issue, maybe the premium gets bigger. At what point will people completely stop opening old product? I don't think that point exists because we're all gambling creatures, and beyond that we have already seen that in Pokemon, despite the prices already being 10 times our prices, at least for like base set compared to LOB, and people are still breaking it and they are turning it into spectacles like Logan Paul. So I don't know, it has to be higher than that at least. Question for Q&A: can you stream or have random hangouts, voice chat or even video chat in your Discord server? I'd love to talk IRL. I generally don't have a lot of time. I will sometimes stream Vanguard over on Twitch, like twitch.tv/realsolemn. Maxim Solemn was taken. But yeah, it's something to consider though. Does anyone know if waiting to sell around April, May is a good time to sell? I figured people get their tax refunds during that time and maybe they're willing to buy more. That's so hard to say. Like, some cards might be higher, some cards might be lower. I don't know. I'm not a fan of timing the market, if that makes sense. If you actually like love the card, why are you selling? If it's for investment purposes, what were your gains so far? How risky is the asset? Like, there's a lot of questions that go into it, and just saying, oh, April is the sell time, really doesn't work like that. Now we go into Instagram. Do you still play the card game or do you just collect now? I do play the card game, but I'm extremely casual. So Cardfight Vanguard is where I try hard competitively, and Yu-Gi-Oh is where I just enjoy and collect, but I do have some decks. I have a Cyber Dragon deck, I have a Zombie deck, I have an Eldritch deck, which is not the same as a Zombie deck necessarily. I have a Chaos deck, I have some Dark Warrior deck, I have PK, I have a few decks, but I don't, you know, try to be, well, I'm gonna join this remote dueling tournament and go crazy and try to win a Madden. That's not really my style in Yu-Gi-Oh, at least. In Vanguard, I try hard. What's your day job like? Genuinely curious as someone that's been following since the early days of Solemn Vanguard. Love your content. Wow, amazing. So my day job is more so just running 2 businesses. That's pretty amazing and sometimes stressful because, well, everything falls on your shoulder, but there's also a level of freedom, though sometimes people will overstate that freedom, like being your own boss. In the end, if you run a business, all your customers are your boss. So it's really the same thing, you're just changing who the stakeholders are. Next up, I'm gonna chill a little. If you want a playmat, this beautiful one is available at zerodamagegaming.com. As you can see, she's making stonks. You can use the code SOLEMN for a discount. We also have Bubble Man, blowing bubbles, because this is all a bubble, you guys. Everything's a bubble. So yeah, you have some PSA cards, you have some money, just more stonks. Finally, this bad boy. Even more stonks. So yeah, I enjoy these. I'm gonna be using these for all my unboxings now. Also to play the game, of course. So if that's something you enjoy, just go to zerodamagegaming.com, use the code SOLEMN for some percentages off. Back to the questions. What do you think Konami should do when designing new products towards collectors? I don't really know. I think inherently so many collectors are different, so you can't really please them all. Like, some collectors only want the old stuff, some collectors only want the GX stuff, and there's nothing Konami can do now that can really, you know, push towards those people because they specifically want the stuff they grew up on. However, there's also just collectors who want those card arts but reimagined. So something they could do is maybe make ghost rares of GX cards or full arts of LOB or stuff like that they could probably do. Personally, I feel Konami should look into full arts and so forth, even though not everyone will appreciate them. Some people will. I would love to see a full art Cyber Dragon with special foiling and all of that. Do you think the recent change to include old collectible cards in a new Starlight Rarity and so forth and bringing back Ghost Rare cards are a good way to entice players to buy new products? Yes, but I don't think you can build your entire franchise on shiny versions. So while they can milk that a little, you know, it shouldn't become the main driver of sales. Interesting cards, interesting archetypes, interesting everything should be the way you drive sales. But definitely add some cool little collector spice in there to also talk to that market segment. Thoughts on the middle stuff. Those eras that aren't old but aren't new. Cosmo Blazer, Lord of the Tachyon Galaxy, in terms of their meta, collectability, future prospects. So meta-wise, I don't know. You know, I'm a casual scrub player and I'm fine with that. I'll start linking off all my shit in my PK deck and make a board, and then someone hand traps me at the right moment and I'll cry. I'm not a person to say that something in those sets will be good meta-wise. Personally, if a card is going to be good meta-wise, it tends to be really hard to predict, or Konami will reprint it like we saw with Snake Rain, where people were buying it out and then they said, oh, we're Snake Rain again, and well, there goes your investment. So meta-wise, I wouldn't be speculating, especially on older stuff that can be reprinted. Collectability-wise, I would just be careful, because you need to realize a lot of the collector's market is built on nostalgia, and how many kids actually grew up with those cards. A lot of people say, well, modern after a while becomes vintage, and we should really make a video about this. But you gotta ask yourself, how many kids did actually grew up on that? You can think 5 years ago was the same as 18 years ago, but the data would suggest otherwise. So gotta be a little bit more careful there. Now, might it go up? Maybe, I don't know. But I would never bet on those over the older stuff like actual vintage or GX or even some 5Ds Ghost Rares, just because it's still cheap. Like, if it's still cheap, consider why. Maybe there's an argument though, maybe some of these will go up, but I'm not betting on that personally. Please give some more insights on your main income streams. You mentioned that you have a software company and doing music on the side. I'm currently a UX designer, a software company, and doing photos on the side. I dream of transitioning more into doing my own business. I mean, from what you're telling me, it seems like you are somewhat running your own business. You know, if you're a UX designer and you have a software company, or are you a UX designer for a software company? Maybe I read that wrong. But yeah, I mean, my main income stream would have to be my software company. And it's not even close. It's probably 90%. Because you need to understand, like, everything I do is nothing compared to Solemn Tones, which is my company. Like, if someone holds a gun to my head and says you have to pick one thing right now, I will instantly drop Vanguard, Yu-Gi-Oh, everything I love for that company. Like, it's not even close, even though I love all of this so much. So the amount of time I put into that, and love and ideas and all the years that led up to it, because really it's been 10 years in the making of me getting into that niche and learning all these things and figuring out what people want and so forth. It's just bar none. So main income stream, again, 90% that. And then everything else is just, you know, me having fun. And if it happens to create some side income, that's cool. The diversification is appreciated, but it's really not comparable. If you dream of transitioning into your own business, you really need to ask yourself what it is you're trying to get out of it. Are you dreaming of, you know, some dreamscape of, oh, I'll be my own boss and I'll have all this freedom? Or is it that you already have an idea that you want to see? Because I think it's very important that you start from, there is this change and I want this change to happen, rather than I want to have a business. Because why? You know, like Solemn Tones literally started from me saying, I want to be able to make metal music on my laptop, and currently I can't. How can I make that happen? And then the business just followed from the fact that those products were made. It's not like I'm gonna be a businessman now. While I did say that as a kid, like I wanted to be an inventor and a businessman and so forth as a kid, it's not like you start from that. You need to start from the idea that you already have, and that can turn into a business. Because if you're just saying, I want to make a business, you tend to go into that rabbit hole of YouTube where everyone's selling you some business you can start, but it's really just them selling a course. I don't know, it's like, it's really weird. So I hope you already have some idea and just start putting in the work into that idea. Maybe it turns into a business. After the big early sets of LOB, MRD, MFC, IOC, where do you see the next biggest pop in the market? 5Ds? Personally, I am bearish on 5Ds, except for specific ghost rares. And the reason, once again, is I do not believe that there were many kids who grew up on 5Ds. There are a lot of people who started playing in that era, but I don't know if that's enough. Again, it's possible, you know, on MTG was instantly marketed towards 13 and 16 and 20-year-olds. So it's very possible that, you know, is created somehow. But if I had to bet on any pop, it would be GX, and even there it would be specifically the ultis, but then which ultis? And what about the option that the vintage will just keep on outperforming everything? That's also a possibility. I don't know. I don't like trying to predict. I don't want to say like, oh, I would go ham on this card that's currently $5 and it'll be 5,000 tomorrow. I like to see, there's already demand, and maybe the demand doesn't really match the supply. You know, I'm more so looking for discrepancies rather than trying to predict, if that makes sense. What are your thoughts on Yu-Gi-Oh! Box breaks by Casual Yugi Stuff? What's up? Cool channel, you should check him out. So if it's like selling packs to subscribers like in Pokemon, it can be cool, it can be a fun experience, but it's very important that it doesn't become this, whoa, guys, you should pay me $1,000 for this $50 pack and you're gonna make so much money. If you get the hit, you're making money. Like, I hope that it can stay this fun experience of opening and everyone's having a good time, knowing that it's not an investment. As long as that's made clear and everyone's just on the same path of experiencing a fun box break, I think it's really cool. My question is, do you think the whole Yu-Gi-Oh! Market is being controlled by Bitcoin? Take the example of Blue Eyes White Dragon LOB first PSA 10. I remember this time last year, you could buy a PSA 10 for 2 Bitcoin when Bitcoin was 10k. A PSA 10 is like 80k now, but Bitcoin is also 40 to 50k, so it is still 2 Bitcoin. I think there is a strong correlation / association here, and if Bitcoin markets ever crash, maybe the whole Yu-Gi-Oh! Market will crash as well. What's your thought on this? I think there's two sides to this, and I'll start with why it's wrong, in my opinion, and then we'll go into why there is some truth to it. So first, why it's wrong is there is no correlation between Bitcoin and Yu-Gi-Oh! And that is very clear in the fact that Bitcoin has had really sharp declines when Yu-Gi-Oh! Only went up. Now, I'm not saying Yu-Gi-Oh! Will keep on only going up, but so far, beyond like 10-20% retracements, vintage Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards have consistently just gone up. You went from a card that you could buy for 50 to 100 to 200, maybe 180, 300, 400, 500, 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, 10,000. There was no point where your $2,000 card was suddenly worth 500. Well, except I guess when people like found the DDS case and suddenly DDS crashed and there was this corrected Dark Paladin that someone had like 37 and then that crashed. But beyond those like specific cards because of a population freak out, vintage Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards as a whole market have mostly just gone up. Whereas Bitcoin, if you remember 2017, it peaked at 20k and then it crashed down and it was down. I think the low point was around 5k, maybe slightly lower, maybe slightly higher. And then it really took a while, well into 2020, to get that massive surge again. So if in markets you are looking for correlations, the correlation should be strong. You shouldn't just be taking this point and then ignore everything that happened between it. Because then you could make associations for everything. You could say, well, currently silver is way up, currently gold is way up, currently all the cryptos are way up, currently the housing market is way up, currently the S&P is way up, everything is way up. And so by just taking like these two random points and going, look, it has changed since then, so therefore it's correlated, it's not really like entirely true. You don't really look for correlation that way. What is very true is in this zero interest rate QE world where everything is stimulus and the money machine goes burr, and that's not really what's happening. I know people are smarter than that, but to make it real simple, everything has been booming. You could have invested in literally anything, and it has gone up. And this has made it so there's a lot of speculators calling themselves investors, being over leveraged, being hard into super speculative assets, no real fundamental basis in any of their holdings, working on margin and lending money to do all of these crazy things. And that has made it so surely all these speculative markets may have players in them that are over leveraged while being part of all of them. So if you are someone who is consistently only trading with margin and all of your money is in crypto, Tesla, maybe some ARK fund and Pokemon cards, and then one thing goes wrong, because you know, stuff can't go up forever. We don't know what the catalyst may be. We don't know. No one can predict the future. But if one of them goes wrong and you are then extremely over leveraged, now you have to sell out of your other positions to cover the leverage of that one position that went wrong. And so if the whole market is these speculative bulls that are over leveraged into all of these super hyped volatile markets, it's very possible that when these are forced to sell because of whatever catalyst, that will take down quite a few of these volatile markets at once. So if we suddenly saw a harsh retrace in one of the hyper-speculative markets, it may trigger some sell-offs in the other ones. But that doesn't necessarily mean that Bitcoin as a currency is completely correlated to trading cards.